What is the state of liberation? Is it Sat Chit Ananda? Or is it the experience of bliss in the Brahma Loka or Vaikunta or Kailasa? Or is it emptiness? Is it nothingness? In the last verse of the Atma Shatkam, the great Guru Adi Shankara proclaims, Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupo vibhutvacha sarvatra sarvendriyanam nacha sangatam naiva muktirna meya chidhananda rupa shivoham shivoham. In all the previous verses of the Atma Shatkam, Adi Shankara states what the Atma is not. In this verse, he states what it is. Aham nirvikalpo nirakara rupo. I am without any variety, without any form. Nirvikalpa. Vikalpa is variety. Nirvikalpa means without any variety. Nirakara. Akara is shape, form. Nirakara, without any form. Vibhutvacha sarvatra sarvendriyanam. I am all pervading, the source of everything. I am everywhere and the source of all the indriyas, the sense organs. Nacha sangatam naiva muktir nameya. I am not attached to anything, neither am I freed from anything. I am immeasurable. Chidhananda rupa shivoham shivoham. I am of the form of pure consciousness bliss. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. Advaita states that the Atma is identical to the Brahman. Brahman alone exists. And the state of liberation is the pure state of being referred to as Sat Chit Ananda. Various subschools of Vedanta, when they deal with topics like Moksha, differ slightly in their approach. Even within Advaita Vedanta, there are different models. However, for an earnest seeker, we will see that they are all not that different. The source material for all of this are the Upanishads. So let us go directly to the source material, the Upanishads, and see some verses from the Upanishads where moksha is being discussed. The subject matter is pretty complex, so please listen with care. The Chandogya Upanishad and the Brihadaranyaka Upanishads give very detailed accounts of what happens to a knower, a realized being, after they die or when they attain Brahmajnana while living. For now, we will just see descriptions of what happens when the realized jiva leaves this mortal coil. First off, to describe a realized individual, the Upanishads use adjectives like Atmanam Anuvidya, knower of the Atman, one who has knowledge of the Atman. Elsewhere, it also calls them Samprasada, serene one. What happens when those possessed of Atmanam Anuvidya depart? The Upanishads, in fact, give very detailed accounts of the path taken by these jivas. The Chandogya Upanishad says, these individuals, they take the path described as the northern path, the Uttarayana Marga, also called the Archiradi Marga, the shining path, or the Devayana Marga, the path of the celestials. So this path is taken by the jivas of the realized individuals once they leave the body. Those who live in accordance with Dharma, those who understand the true nature of the Atma, they take this course. The Upanishads are not very theoretical. They also give techniques on how to attain this knowledge. These practices, which are usually contemplative meditation techniques, are actually outlined in the Upanishads. They are the Samvarga Vidya, Vaishvanara Vidya, Panchagni Vidya, and so on. So the jiva of those who are realized, those who have implemented these techniques, those who understand the true nature of reality, they take the northern path after death. Now the path in itself is very interesting. Essentially, it goes through various states until it reaches Brahma Loka, where they are liberated from the cycle of birth and death. As the first step, the Upanishad states that once these realized individuals depart the body, guided by the celestials, the jiva reaches the realm of light. Te archisham abhisambhavanti. They attain light. And from there, it moves further to a plane called the realm of the day. And from there, it moves to the world of the bright fortnight, the Shukla Paksha, the period of the waxing moon. And from there, it moves further onto the realm of the 6 months of the sun, moving to the north. And then it moves on to the realm of the deity who oversees the year, the entire year. And from there, it goes to the sun and halts for a while. And from there, it moves to the moon, Chandra, and enjoys an aspect of the divine. Then there is a flash of lightning, and there arrives an Amanuva Purusha, a superhuman being, a superhuman force, which takes the Jiva to Brahma Loka and onwards towards liberation. The Upanishad states, Chandramaso Vidyutam Tatpurusho Amanava Sa Enan Brahma Gamayatyesha Devayana Panta Iti. So the realized move towards the Brahma Loka, guided by this Amanava Purusha, where they are liberated from the cycle of birth and death. What happens next? In the 8th chapter, the Chandogya Upanishad states, Ye ihe atmanam anuvidya vrajanti etancha satyakamam satesham sarveshu lokeshu kamacharo bhavati. When those who know the self leave this world, they are free to go anywhere. Tesham sarveshu lokeshu kamacharo bhavati. They have free, unrestricted movement across all the lokas. The word kamachara means free and unrestricted access. And then it goes on and says, Sa yadi pitruloka kamo bhavati samkalpa devasya pitara samuttishtanti tena pitrulokena sampanno mahiyate. If such a person wishes to be in the company of his pitrus, his ancestors, his forefathers, they appear before him as he wishes. Joining his forefathers, he becomes great. And the next few verses talks about various worlds that the person can manifest just by samkalpa. World of brothers, mothers, sisters, friends, etc., etc. It states that all their satya kamas are fulfilled and satya sankalpas come to manifest. Satya kama and satya sankalpa are pure desires and pure thoughts that are in line with that of the Ishvara. Later it reiterates, Tadya evaitam brahmalokam brahmacharyena anuvindanti tesham evaisha brahmalokas tesham sarveshu lokeshu kamacharo bhavati. Again it states, those who attain this brahmaloka through brahmacharya, walking in the path of the Brahman with self-control, they become the masters of the Brahma Loka and they can visit all the worlds that they like. So the Upanishad is painting a very vibrant picture of this state. But let us look at a few other verses. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, sage Yajnavalkya imparts knowledge of the Brahman to his wife Maitreyi. In that, when he talks about the realized individual, he says, if you put a lump of salt into water, it dissolves completely. You cannot pick the salt out of the entire water, but if you taste the water, the salt is all pervading, it tastes salty. So he says, similarly, this great, endless, infinite reality is but pure intelligence. He says, idam mahad bhutam anantam aparam vijnana ganaheva. So, he says, the Atma, the self, seems to exist separately on account of these elements, the elements that constitute the body, and so on. And this sense separatedness is destroyed with the elements. So when the body is destroyed, this sense of separatedness is also destroyed. He says, Na pretya savnya asti iti. After departure, it has no more particular consciousness. So when such a realized being departs, their Atma dissolves into the Brahman, having no more particular consciousness. So this is what the sage Yajnavalkya said to Maitreyi. So Maitreyi herself, on listening to Yajnavalkya, is a little bit confused. She asks, why do you say the self doesn't have any consciousness after it attains this oneness? Then the great sage Yajnavalkya illustrates this. Individual existence of the self connected with the particular body is due to ignorance and is destroyed by knowledge. But just as the sun, moon, etc., which are realities behind the reflections, remain as they are, so pure intelligence, which is the transcendent Brahman, remains unchanged. Pure intelligence, which is the transcendent Brahman, remains unchanged. So at the basic level, all of us define consciousness as a subject being aware of an object or of itself. So Yajnavalkya says, to the knower of the Brahman, everything has become the self. All that exists is the self. So there is no individual object to be known. So existence awareness is there. Individual self-awareness, particular awareness is destroyed. Now these are the descriptions of the moksha state. To a few listening, these accounts of the vibrant state of Brahma Loka, Sarveshu Lokeshu, Kamachara Bhavati, Satya Sankalpa and Satya Kama appear slightly different to existing as pure consciousness bliss. Now, various great sages and philosophers wrote commentaries on the Upanishads, agreeing and disagreeing on certain things, and the state of moksha is one of that. The reason for all of this, in a way, begins with the great Adi Shankara. Now, Adi Shankara divides the Brahman into two aspects. He reads the Upanishad, comes to the conclusion that there are two aspects of the Brahman, the Saguna Brahman and the Nirguna Brahman. In Advaita, all that exists is the Brahman. Brahman's inscrutable power is Maya. Maya becomes the Upadhi of Brahman. The Brahman conditioned by Maya is the Ishvara. Of course, Ishvara is not subject to Maya. Ishvara is the wielder of Maya, and the individual souls are conditioned by Avidya and have the Chidabhasa of the Brahman. Maya has two attributes, wheeling and projection, Avarana and Vikshepa. This much should be clear from an Advaita perspective. Again, the Saguna Brahman is the Brahman with attributes, divine attributes, the Ishvara, and the Nirguna Brahman is the impersonal, attributeless Brahman, which is pure consciousness, pure awareness. Now, this distinction in itself is not explicitly there in the Upanishads. Upanishads don't use the word Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. Going back to moksha, Adi Shankara categorically states that it is the knower of the Nirguna Brahman that becomes one with the Brahman at death. There is no going via the northern path or anything. The knower dissolves into the Brahman and is always in a state of Sat Chit Ananda, existing only as pure consciousness bliss. He states that it is the knower of the Saguna Brahman, the Ishvara, who reaches the Brahma Loka via the northern path. These will stay in a state of Brahma Loka till the dissolution of the Brahma Loka and then attain the highest moksha. Now, the released Atma, the knower of the Saguna Brahman, can exist with or without a body. It affects its Satya Kama and Satya Sankalpa by its mere will. This he states in his Brahma Sutra Bhashyas, his commentaries on the Brahma Sutras. But this northern path, Satyagama, Satya Sankalpa, all this is for the knower of the Saguna Brahman, not the Nirguna Brahman. Of course, this is Adi Shankara's viewpoint, and many other schools of thought also developed. For Ramanujacharya, another great philosopher of Vishishtadvaita, there is no distinction between the knower of the Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. The knower goes by the path of the gods to Brahma Loka. Brahman is the Saguna Brahman. The later developments, particularly on the Bhakti side, hold that Jiva retains its individual form in Mukti and does the will of God and finally enjoys union with God. There arose various states of moksha. Salokya, going to the loka of the deity, Vaikunta, Kailasa, etc. Samipya, being close to the deity worshipped. Sarupya, attaining the form of the deity worshipped. Sarshti, attaining the opulences of the deity worshipped. And Sayujya, the union with the deity. So now dualists like Madhvacharya state that in Sayujya Mukti, one enjoys similar pleasures as Bhagavan or Ishvara, experiencing nothing but bliss. Even within Advaita, many models emerged, and we will see that a bit later. Now, there is a lot of hair splitting over these definitions. However, we will see that all these differences are for the most part very theoretical. And even if you shift from one philosophy to another, it brings about minimal change for an earnest seeker. When talking about all these definitions of moksha, what we are really asking is if there is self-awareness, an awareness of the I, and is there an ability to perform actions once we attain this state? Is this some sort of a static state or a dynamic state? Is there any experience? So, in a nutshell, we are trying to ask, what can I do in moksha? Now, for attaining any of these states, be it the Kailasa Vaikunta of Bhakti, the northern path, or to Brahma Loka, the I has to dissolve. So we need to free ourselves from this limited concept of I and action. Action is defined as an interaction between a subject and an object, and is there only when there is subject-object dichotomy. So when the state of Brahma Loka is attained, all these distinctions cease. So Brahma Loka is a state, and all these distinctions cease. But existence awareness exists. And from where we stand, when such beings act, this is unattached action. So, which is why it is called Satya Kama and Satya Sankalpa. The desires and the wishes of these realized beings are nothing but the will of the Brahman or the Ishvara that has manifested. The Upanishads clearly state that the contemplative meditation on the Brahman is the way to moksha. All the Mahavakyas always say that you have to understand that everything is the Brahman. So one needs to practice it lifelong, that this can be held at the moment of death. This reinforces the fact that the Atma is a part of the Supreme Absolute. Only such jivas who have shed the I can approach the state of Brahma Loka. Like Nachiketa in the Kathopanishad, one always aspires after the highest goal. For those in Vaikunta or Shivaloka, the I dissolves. They're just an extension of the will of Ishvara. Their bhakti has dissolved the ego, the I. So even if you take the attainment of Brahma Loka or other states of mukti that are described in the Bhakti Marga on one side, versus this absolute dissolution into Brahman on the other, already you can see that these states are not that different, especially from where we stand, because the I has to dissolve anyways, and there is only existence awareness. And you operate as the will of the Ishvara, or you stay in the state of Sat Chit Ananda. At a very high level, another helpful way to think of it is that pure knowledge is potential and experience is kinetic. When the liberated jiva operates with the full realization of the unity with the Supreme Absolute, this is probably what the Upanishads describe when it's talking about Satya Kama and Satya Sankalpa and so on. Many great sages and philosophers thought so as well. Again, the Upanishads themselves do not categorically state that on release one has to only be in the potential state, because if you think about it, the Brahman itself manifests the infinite universe in all its shapes and forms. So both states are not that different, because there is no self awareness, only pure existence awareness. And many great sages and philosophers thought so as well. The great Abhinavagupta, one of the greatest philosophers of the Trika Saiva Siddhanta, states, Astashyad eka rupena vapusha chen maheshwara maheshwaratvam samvittam tadatyakshat ghatadivat. If the Supreme Maheshwara were to stay as one single form, he will have to leave the state of Maheshwara and Supreme Consciousness and become an inanimate object like a pot. What is the meaning of this consciousness if it's not dynamic? You might as well exist as an inanimate object. Ramanujacharya, another great philosopher who propounded Vishishta Advaita, does not even accept this dichotomy between Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. He just says Jiva and Jagat are the Visheshanas, the inherent quality of the Ishvara, and the northern path is the only path by which the realized individuals traverse, and they end up in Brahma Loka, liberated from the cycle of birth and death. Of course, other lokas were added by the Bhakti Marga as well. Appaya Dikshita, a philosopher of the Shiva Advaita, states that the liberated jiva only attains Saguna Brahman, and once all these jivas are liberated, there occurs a Sarva Mukti, the merging of everything into the Nirguna Brahman. So we will go into all these later. For those who are still asking, Advaita states Satchidananda. What is this state of Satchidananda? How can there be consciousness without an object, and how is this bliss? The way that is explained is as follows. The Brahman is pure consciousness bliss. That is its state, pure knowledge. It does not need to know anything because it is everything. Like Yajnavalkya states, the objects seen are reflections of the sun. Take away the objects, the sun still exists. So the state of Sat Chit Ananda is this state of awareness. So why is this bliss though? In this world, we often experience pleasure and more rarely happiness. As we come across an object, the senses perceive an object. The mind interprets this into a feeling. When this object is desirable, there is a feeling of pleasure. Where is this pleasure? It's not in the object, because we find often that the same object does not evoke the same feeling in us at different points of time. And for another person, the same object might evoke a very different feeling. You might like an object, the other person might hate it. So this bliss of even this fleeting pleasure is in us and not in the object. But this is just object consciousness bliss. If you are able to extend this by removing the mind, the antakarana, this is the unqualified bliss, that one experiences in moksha. And this is the best approximation that we can get to that state because we are thinking still with the mind. One thing we have hopefully clearly established is that moksha is not snuffing out or extinction, it is a state of bliss. So, either way, whether it is the knower of the Saguna Brahman or the knower of the Nirguna Brahman, whether it is Advaita or Vishishta Advaita, whether it is the Swatantriya of Shiva, moksha is indeed the most vibrant state that the Atma can attain, realizing its universality. As always, the known is a drop in the unknown, an ocean. Peace.